microphone's picking everything up. So, okay. Welcome to our second episode of Small Talk. Yay.
Wow.
Today we're with Karen Chow,
Hello, everybody. Yeah, that's me.
my lovely friend Karen. For those of you who don't know, Karen and I we met in OCAD
hmm
and we became quick friends in our last year, kind of, finishing up in our thesis year because we went through some struggles then together with like our entire group of, fellow strugglers. I don't even know how to say it.
Yeah, there was like 20 of us in that thesis class, and
Yeah.
yeah, we bonded quickly because of trauma, I would say.
Yes. Trauma
Yeah,
bonding,
trauma bonding.
but like
Yeah,
not the bad version, like
yeah.
the good version.
Oh,
And Karen and I went on a lovely backpacking trip to Southeast Asia after that. And we just kind of got to know each other a lot better. And now
we even lived together.
we live together. Holy shit. I
Yeah,
completely not forgot, but like, yes, we live
like it seems like
together.
so long ago, right? That's
Yeah.
sort of why I don't like keep it at the front of my mind, I guess now.
I know, me too. And I lived with like a couple people in that apartment too. So like it kind of sometimes blurs, but
Yeah.
we had a great roommate life together. And now we're just good friends, catching up. And yeah, here we are. Second episode. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. We have a couple topics that we want to touch on, but again, mostly around just COVID struggles. Everyone's going through stuff, everyone's thinking things, feeling things. So, the point of this is to just get it all out and also to talk about it because sometimes the stuff we see around us isn't always honest. So, this is kind of why we're here.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah, if you look at my Instagram, I've been doing great. Like cooking, new boyfriend, went to the cottage. But man, you know, there's so
There's
much that you
stuff.
don't see.
There's stuff in there. All right. Why don't you give a little quick self intro before we get into all the fun stuff?
Okay. Hmm. I guess what can I say about myself? I live in downtown Toronto currently. I work in the advertising field, specifically sort of in like specialized in social media and digital media. So basically, like making Instagram posts and like writing tweets for a living. But like, it is more than that. But
So much
yeah,
more.
that's my day job. I'm currently working from home. I have a roommate right now who is sort of like another one of these people that were in our cohort in university. What else? I have a partner that lives in Toronto as well, um, around the corner basically from me, which is very convenient for COVID. And I guess that's about it. I don't know what else there is to say about me.
I mean, that's a pretty good start. I forgot to mention, like all the episodes I'm trying to do, we're having the same sort of
Hmm.
bev, which is white wine today. We were talking about you kind of touched upon your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So you started a relationship sort of right before COVID, right?
Yeah, so it was like the end of February, beginning of March. So
Mm-hmm.
COVID was very much like a thing on the world sort of like news cycle, but it
Mm-hmm.
hadn't really reached Canada and specifically GTA and Toronto in a way that was, I guess, what people thought was significant. It was really strange to navigate because usually you go on like quite a few dates you know,
Yeah.
before you even like see each other's own spaces
Well, yeah, you gotta like suss the other person out first.
or like ask them sensitive questions like who else are you hanging out with or who else are you seeing, which
Yeah, that was a thing.
very very awkward because I feel like now that's sort of like a prerequisite
Totally. There's like the
before you
whole,
even see someone.
yeah, like people are talking about COVID talk, like the new sex talk is like
Yeah,
asking people, like, who have you seen? Are you seeing other people a lot sooner than you normally would in a relationship, or
yeah.
how people normally did it, in modern times, I guess, which I think is like really good. I don't know. I haven't personally had to do that, but in my head, in theory, I feel like it would be a good thing. Your story is it's not totally, whoa, I like blew out my mic there. It's not totally like an isolated incident because I
No.
think a lot of people will, I mean, even in my own circle of friends, I think you're one of two people I know that started sort of really seeing each other right before COVID. And
Mhm.
then how things almost like not accelerated, but did
But
move pretty quickly in a good
quicker
way.
than, yeah, quicker than it would have if it wasn't COVID.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And like
because
so
yeah.
far, like both of your stories are pretty like good or successful dating stories or relationship
Mhm.
stories. So yeah, I think it's like something that it's this like weird, like almost like it's almost like you kind of wish you would have like jumped on that kind of boat at the time. It's like that boat was just there, like just before COVID, if you were dating and you were like pretty much pretty good because you get to, lock that guy down.
Exactly. And in some ways, like at first I was thinking like, oh, would I have like wanted to be so serious? Because
Yeah,
with a person like this quickly, if it wasn't the pandemic, is this
totally.
a mistake? Like there is definitely a lot of that in my mind, but like all signs pointed to yes. And I thought about like, oh, would I still want to see this person if it wasn't a stay-at-home order or the pandemic? And I think that's the key, right? Like if you just have someone there because it's comfortable and you're like secure that that person's not seeing anybody else, you're not seeing anyone else, and that's the reason why you want to be with them, then maybe reevaluate. But I was just lucky. A lot of people were not lucky.
A part of me, like the cynic side of me is kind of like, did it work out for those people because they were just lonely at the time? Not just lonely in the sense of
Mhm.
like we're all lonely when you're single. Well, and I shouldn't say that. Some people are not lonely at all when they're single, but I mean, most people, you could say for the general public, you could say you're lonely when you're single, but like we were going through a really dark time and very scary and very uncertain. And being alone was scary. And being alone
Mhm.
was something that we were forced into. None of us wanted to be in that situation. We didn't choose it. We were forced to be self isolated. So, like, do you think people were just, oh, I just want to be with someone? And that someone happened to be that guy that I was texting a couple days ago. And then, like, we kind of had a good vibe. And so maybe I'll kind of like see how that goes. Do you think that's kind of part of it?
I think so, right? Like usually when you're dating, you're like, oh, well, that person's kind of cool. Like, oh, I definitely go on a second date with him. But then like you get caught up in all these other matches if you're online dating or all these other people. And so you get caught up with the idea of dating such and such person or such and such person that you don't really like try
Yeah.
with the one person.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's kind of could be both, right? Like the pace at which people date these days, I think is really quick. I'm talking before pandemic, before stay at
Mhm.
home.
Mhm.
Like a lot of my friends were like going on four-ish dates a week with like different people just so they could meet people.
Oh my God, 4 dates a week? Damn, good for
It's
them.
like 2 to 4, but like
Good for
pretty
them.
high volume of dating, right?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Just
and
for context, Karen met Andrew on, can I say?
yeah, go for it.
On Hinge,
Yeah.
correct?
It was Tinder actually.
Oh, on Tinder. Oh my God,
I
I thought it was
know.
Hinge. Okay, never mind. Tinder is back, everybody.
I mean, I don't know if Tinder is back.
I
It's
mean,
funny.
you met your man on Tinder.
It's funny because Tinder is like not the one that anyone uses anymore because it's full of
Yeah, it's creepy.
very creepy. But Andrew, he's quite a bit older than me. He is in his 30s, his early 30s, and I'm in, I guess, my early to mid 20s. I guess I'm mid 20s now. I'm turning 26 this year. I can let go of my early 20s.
I know. I know. I still feel like I'm in my early 20s. It's okay.
But he didn't even know that the other ones existed. Like he was like, "Oh,
Oh.
online dating, there's only Tinder, right?"
Wow,
Like,
you got a really good one. Everybody wants the guy that like doesn't really know about the dating stuff, but then they're kind of on it and they can just catch them on right at that good time. You pick them out when they're ripe.
yeah, exactly. Not when they're like cynical and have gone on like so many dates.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
like me. Therefore, I'm no longer
no,
on
they
them,
don't
but
deserve. None of them deserve you.
oh,
It's true.
anyways,
It's
I'm just
true.
too much. I'm too much. I
But
love
no,
it.
I think there is something to the fact that, like, there's this person that you enjoy. Why not try and make it work because it seems risky to see other people?
Mm-hmm.
I do agree with that. And who knows what would have happened if Andrew and I were dating when it wasn't the pandemic.
Do you feel like having a partner has helped your mental health?
I think in a lot of ways, for me, yes. Um, I think that I think a lot of people see me. I don't know. You can corroborate this. Cooperate. I don't know if that's the word. Anyway, as like quite an independent person,
Yeah.
kind of like self-sufficient, can doesn't really need somebody to
She don't
like,
need no man.
yeah, like help me with stuff or like, you know, as a support. But what I have to say is that yes, I can be all of those things, and I would really like to hope that I'm all those things that people see me as. But it doesn't mean that you can't have also someone to support you and be there for you and also enrich your life in ways that you can't by yourself.
What advice would you give to people who are or people or couples who are going through really hard hardships? So like how do you manage kind of overcoming those times?
Yeah, I think it's hard because everyone's relationship is so personal to not only themselves but the sort of dynamic that they have with each other. But I think like in a lot of ways, I'm such a stubborn person. And a lot of times when I had fought with previous partners or even like my family or my friends, but most commonly like people that I was seeing romantically, I am such like a stubborn person and I just want to be right and I'm not willing to concede at all. But like trying to see something from another person or your counterpart's point of view is super powerful. Like really try hard to strip all of your feelings and all of your emotions towards the situation away and place yourself in that other person's counterpoint and see if it seems so ridiculous and crazy and like um just like conflicting as you actually think it is.
Mm,
Um, but it's something that I'm definitely working on because I'm
mhm,
so stubborn and I hate being wrong.
mhm. Oh, yeah, me
And
too.
admitting that I'm wrong and saying sorry is very difficult for me.
Yeah. I have the hardest time apologizing or thanking people I care about the most or
Mhm.
like that I love the most.
Yeah.
But for
No, I
people,
agree.
like, yeah, for like your coworker or not even coworkers, sorry, coworkers.
I would say that for me, it's probably my mom.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like to my
Yeah,
mom, I have the hardest time saying out loud. And it could also be an Asian thing. It definitely is partly an Asian thing.
definitely.
Yeah.
But my mom, like, let alone relationship issues, my mom, man, she can like basically without saying anything and just looking at me a certain way can make me cry. And
Oh
like,
my God. You and I, we talked about this a lot. Karen and I have this thing where we're both so over controlled and not in the sense that our moms control us, that they have this weird control over us without them even doing anything.
yeah, it's like I always and I've talked to my mom about this too because
Me too.
I don't understand what happens, but whenever you say something, I take it so much to heart. And it's
Yes.
like, even if you're just bringing up something as like a question, I'll just take it so hard and be
Yeah,
like,
and I'll
oh,
think
my God.
about it all night.
Yeah.
Any of you guys listening, let us know if you also have this mommy issue.
Oh, I never thought that I had any issues with my parents because, by all accounts, they did, I think, a great job parenting. I
It
have two
has
brothers.
nothing to do with parenting, though. It's all
No,
to do with you.
it's like perceived control, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, sometimes it comes from like, I mean, my mom used to try sort of like not controlling, but she was very opinionated and very vocal about her opinions. Like when I was younger, maybe too far to the point where I'm like, you probably shouldn't tell me that I look fat in certain clothes, you
Yeah.
know. But a lot of Korean moms are like that too. Korean parents are very explicit and vocal about your body and your weight and your face and certain complexes that you have. And that's just like normal in Korea. It shouldn't be, but it is.
I think that's
And
yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's just, that kind of came from that too. I was like, you need to stop saying these things because I feel like I need to be a certain way for you. It was only later until she realized that like those words were really harming my self, confidence. And I had to tell her like it's doing a lot of harm on me and like you need to stop saying those things. So she's obviously learned to not say those things anymore a long time ago. But sometimes parents just don't know what really hurts you because to them it's just so normal or that's how they were treated when they were younger too, you know?
totally. And I think like weight and Asian mothers and daughters and like
Oh,
even with like your aunties and stuff like that,
yeah.
like, oh, it's so toxic. Like,
Even like ladies at the grocery store in Korea,
yeah,
they'll comment on your weight. Like, I'm sorry, do you know me?
but it's so like normal to them, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's not, I don't think that they mean it as like something that's super harmful, but
Hmm.
it's definitely something that I found really harmful growing up.
Yeah.
And it has definitely followed me into my adult life
Yeah.
in ways that, you know, you can't really erase just because they're there from childhood. You know, I hesitate to call it trauma, but it's it's definitely those memories and the feeling that you had as a kid, that gut reaction that you had when those comments were sort of like spewed at you.
Yeah. Why do you hesitate to call it trauma?
I don't know, because I think, you know, I've talked to my mom about this, and I think we have differing views on it. And I don't think it's ever going to be that we see eye to eye,
Mm.
because I think to her, she was just making sure that her kid was healthy, that she was like getting enough exercise and encouraging her to have healthy habits and healthy eating decisions. And to her, it was just like helpful, you know, like 12-year-old kid doesn't like sports. Okay, let's get her a gym membership. Um, Seeing that, you know, like you're choosing to eat too much rice at dinner, like,
Mm,
oh,
hmm.
maybe I'll say something because, you know, like then she would know instead of like not knowing.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, the way that I am, and because I'm so sensitive, that kind of stuff, like, oh, it affects you.
Hmm. Yeah.
And even now, I think about it, like if my mom brings up like exercise or something, because my whole family is very active, you
Hmm.
know, like everyone has their own thing. Like my mom does yoga and boxing and used to have a personal trainer for like years and years and years. My dad's a runner. He plays a bunch of like tennis and um, I guess golf is a sport. But my brothers were like very naturally athletic as children and like I don't know, just and also body composition, they're like bean poles. So
Yeah.
I think it was just it I guess maybe it is trauma. Whether she meant it as a negative thing that I would carry for the rest of my life or not.
Yeah. I think like, yeah, trauma can be, it's just like how you felt about it, right? And
Yeah.
if those things still kind of carry on with you now. I think it's totally fair to, label it that way if it helps you. If it helps
Mhm.
you find coping mechanisms or it helps you kind of just overcome what that is. Because I think sometimes the more we muddle it or the less we know or less we understand it, we struggle to even like attempt to understand why we feel that way or struggle to kind of overcome those things. So we kind of touched upon weight gain, which
Mhm.
we can still kind of talk about because I know I was just talking to Jasmine and we talked about it too. She mentioned how, COVID weight and that's very much a thing. Um, how do you feel about, do you feel like you've, from those kinds of traumas that you've experienced in the past about weight gain or about your body, do you feel like those things have kind of, been worse or you felt more, negative feelings about your weight during COVID?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think the fact that, you know, my main form of exercise before was like forcing myself to go to a gym. And
Mm.
that's not a healthy relationship with exercise. I'm going to say that straight up, like not at all.
Why do
But
you think
that's
that?
I think it's because you should have a good relationship and a positive relationship with moving your body, not feeling like it's punishment
Mm.
for, you know, the food that you eat or the weight that you think you shouldn't have. I think that people should have a positive relationship towards moving their body. And moving their body, I say that because exercise to me has like really negative connotations with, being forced to exercise or people saying, "Oh, you should go to the gym and exercise." But moving your body and staying active and healthy in the way that your body needs it, I think is important, regardless of its where it is, right? So of course that's something that I had been working on before COVID ever hit, but now that there's not a gym to go to, and all these people are doing these online Zoom things, or like, as someone who is kind of self-conscious about the way that they look when they're exercising, seeing all these people online doing like 30-minute, fat burning hit workout on their stories is like kind of triggering.
Mm, mm,
um, and I think it made me reject the idea of
mm.
like exercise during lockdown, I
Tr-
guess.
triggering as in how? Like, what about that video was triggering?
I don't know. I think
And we don't have to go into it if that's going to trigger you alone. Like,
no. I think it's because all these people were. I think it's the way that it was framed, right? People did these like 30-day at home, like to get shredded abs while in lockdown, or like, and like me not having a place to go to work out and just sitting like in a chair at my desk or on my couch or lying in bed all day, it made me feel very guilty, I guess, about
mm,
not exercising and not moving
yeah,
while these people were getting shredded in the lockdown.
right, right.
And I think the thing too is that all these types of passive exercise or passive movement kind of are gone, right? Like we were talking about commuting to the office, like
Yeah,
doing those walks every day.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't see that as exercise, but that is walking for an hour a day,
Yeah,
or going to meet up with your friends and walking to that, or
yeah.
going to the park and like throwing a frisbee, like in the summer, like stuff like that. I think that that's where I got most of my activity in a day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to have like focused exercise time, I
Yeah.
guess.
I like to say this, and some of my friends know I've said this a few times, but I see the world. There's two types of people in the world. There's walkers, and then there's like non-walkers. I'm a non-walker. You, my friend, are a walker. And
I need to walk.
Jasmine's a walker, and you described it perfectly. Walkers enjoy and value those more passive activities where it's like
Mm,
commuting or walking to get somewhere instead of taking the bus or taking a streetcar or taking an Uber. They like the process of walking there, or they like to bike there. They like to do those
mhm.
kinds of like smaller exercises, and they're not small. We see it as small because it's not that stock image of the girl in abs and, a sport bra, sweating her head off, that kind of stuff. But that's still exercise. And then
Yes.
there's like the non-walkers like me, where I like to achieve that level of sweating and I hate walking. I don't like passive activities. So I definitely see what you're saying. I remember when I lived with you, every Saturday morning, Karen was out of the house by like
Yeah.
7, and I would wake up at like noon probably. And I'd be like, where is this girl? And she comes back around 1. She has like a mesh bag full of like fresh produce, or like a little shopping bag with like a handcrafted, like some sort of ceramic. I'm like, what happened? And you're like, oh, I just went to this place and grabbed brunch with this friend and went to this place and grabbed this little plant. And then I'm out for dinner later. And I'd be like, she's so like, not even productive. You love being out and about, and
Yeah.
that's how you are. That's how you love to spend your weekends, and definitely admired that, but I can definitely see how that's a struggle right now.
Yeah, it's just a different way of living, and, in a lot of ways I've gotten used to staying at home, but yeah, that activity that I used to get, it is gone now, and I think it has affected me, and, COVID weight, I think I've come to terms with it and sort of, like, understood, "Okay, this is my body, and I'm doing the best that I can, and, I'm not killing myself with the things that I'm eating, but this is also, like, such a moment of stress, and I'm a huge stress eater, like, huge. That's, like, such a coping mechanism for me. Not saying that that's a good thing at all. Should definitely try to actively stop doing that. But if I have a bad day, I'm like, "Ooh, McDonald's."
It would be like you stress eat and then you feel like shit after you stress eat because you're like, I shouldn't be doing this, which adds more stress. And then you know what's
Exactly.
worse? It's all the delivery fees, and then you get the Uber Eats receipt on your phone, and you're like, oh my God, I just spent $60 at H Mart. That's even more stress.
There's, like, 4 different points of,
Yeah.
like, um, negative feelings towards yourself when you finish eating the food, because when you're eating the food you feel great. um, the body feeling that you get from eating so much, or like that kind of food, because usually it's not healthy food,
Yeah,
and
no.
then the aftershock of paying so much money to make yourself feel like this.
Yep. Yep. And you're like, wow, all that money on this crappy feeling. And
Yeah.
now probably diarrhea, level
Yep.
5.
Another level. But it's
It's
so
so
true.
bad.
Oh, ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And like, I really hope other people can relate to this right now because
Yeah.
it's a shitty feeling. One of your concerns is being fused with your roommate.
Yes. So
So I want to ask you about that. I'm like, which roommate? First of all, which roommate are you talking about? The one you're living with now, or your new like upcoming roommate, which is your boyfriend?
no, no, and I think it's the roommate that I'm living with now,
Okay.
because, like, when you're roommate, and I'm friends with my roommate. Um, like, we're very different people, clearly, even with this sort of like last thing that we were talking about. But we just have different lives, and we care about different things, and we have different motivations. And so when I moved in with her, I knew all of that. But I knew that I wasn't going to be home that much, like Hankel said. Like you said, it's like I'm never home. Like,
Mm,
I would always be out. I'm always doing stuff. But because it's COVID, and because we're all in lockdown, I was like forced to be at home, and I'm
mhm.
forced to be in this person's space and her be in my space just constantly.
Yeah.
And I think that there was this level of communication that we never needed to have, that we had to start having to have, because we were always both in each other's space.
Mm,
And I said that it felt like we were one fused person, because her decisions in terms of public health, in terms of who she decided to like keep seeing versus stop seeing, affected me,
mm,
and vice versa, right? Like, everyone who I was still, electing to see or not see, or, even just go to the park with, um, would affect her, because, essentially, if one roommate has COVID, you have to operate in the headspace that the other one has it as well.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
um, which made it really difficult. And, like, I was starting to date Andrew at the time, and she was seeing some of her friends still, but then, you know, we're young and we live in Toronto, like, people want to date. But,
Mm-hmm.
like, we had to have lots of frank, candid conversations
Mm,
about, like, who each other were seeing. And, like, have you asked them this? Have you asked them this? If they answer in this certain way, they can't come to the house, or I would feel uncomfortable with them coming to the house. And, like, suddenly her dating life became a group decision between the two of us.
right. I see.
Um, which, I think would be difficult for any roommates, even if you
Yeah.
were sort of like on the same page, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
That's definitely hard. I mean, yeah, like I'm sure anybody who's living with a roommate right now is going through those similar conversations, those types of conversations that you don't really want to have. I mean, like, out of COVID, we don't even want to have the conversation with our roommates about like who cleans what, or if they
Exactly.
didn't clean something, like, hey, can you go do the garbage? Like,
Yeah,
you and I even had to have those conversations.
I
Like
know.
we were able to get along in a really, not getting into a point where it got really like scary or like mean.
No,
Luckily, we were able to keep those things pretty like level headed because we were both also very organized people. But I mean, I can't even imagine having to have the conversation of like, yeah, but like you can't bring him over because he said this and this, or
yeah.
because he didn't get tested or whatever.
Or like forcing, you know, it feels like almost forcing your roommate to like ask the person that they've just started seeing
Right.
uncomfortable questions.
Right.
Because it's like, you know, of course you wouldn't want to ask them that, like if they're seeing
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talked about expediting COVID talk and all that, but like this has to do with not our health only,
Mhm.
like the people that I'm electing to see that I know all these things about, or she's electing to see that she knows all these things about.
For sure.
So
Yeah, I mean,
it
I was even having those conversation with my friends.
Mhm,
Like when Toronto went into phase 2 in the summer last year, we were able to go to patios, and like I was at the time still living in Toronto, so I was inviting, like I redid my balcony because I knew I was gonna, I didn't actually, at the point I didn't know I was gonna move out, but I was like, I want to do that balcony so I can bring friends over. It's an outdoor space I have. And, my closest friends who I know have been isolating really well can come over and we can at least like work from home together because we were still
mhm,
working from home then. And like a few friends of mine, I knew their offices were all of a sudden open and they were letting people come into the office. And I was uncomfortable with that because most of my friends I was inviting were working really well socially distanced, or
mhm,
they were working from home. So they were already pretty much isolated or taking really good care of themselves. Them going into an office setting, I can't really speak for that, or especially an office setting I'm not familiar with.
mhm,
So it was weird because you don't want it to come off personal. Like you don't want to say like, well, maybe like another time because the fact that you going in, I don't feel comfortable you coming having you over at my house. You don't
mhm.
want that to sound off like I don't want you to come over because I don't like you. It's just I feel uncomfortable knowing that you've now been exposed to people I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, how are things with your roommate now in terms of that conversation? You guys have had those hard
yeah,
conversations.
yeah. And I think we're on the same page, right? Like, I think at first it was kinda hard because, you know, the rules weren't clear, and that's the thing
Yeah.
too. The rules were not clear. It was like, you can see 10 people outside, but don't hang out with anyone outside your household. You can see one other person in your bubble or this person in your bubble, but if you have a roommate, then they're automatically in your bubble, and whoever's in their bubble is in your bubble. It's like, you know, we had to have conversations about how comfortable we were, um, you know, breaking the rules
Yeah.
if we were breaking the rules, or, you know, skirting them just enough that they were outside of what is the recommended
Yeah.
sort of guidelines, right? And I think now we're in a good place where we're very open with each other. If if we say, for example, she goes to see her friend, like I know that she goes to see her friend. This friend she's been seeing for like the amount of time that we've been in this harder lockdown.
Mhm.
But she's had these conversations with that friend,
That's good.
and like they know exactly who each other are seeing.
Mhm.
I know that she's seeing her, but like that sort of connection is important to her, and having that friendship is important to her mental health. So I think it's okay, and I trust this other friend too. But yeah, it took a little while for us to get there, but I think we're in a good place now.
That's
Because
good.
we have this mutual understanding, and also like being open with this kind of stuff is no longer scary because we've crossed that boundary.
Yeah. Phones, games, screen time, and
Oh,
social media. That's a
yeah,
big one.
that is huge. I think
That's huge.
yeah, it's huge because it's such a positive and a negative thing all at once. Brings
Mm,
so much into your life, but also like sucks the energy out of you. You know, it was super common to before talk about the fact that people's lives on social media is just their lives on social media. It's, you know, this percentage of their life that they want to share that is the best percentage of their life.
Right.
And I think that, you know, I think quarantine, it kind of perpetuated that in a way. You know, you saw people being super productive with their time, or like, oh, look at all these new skills that I have, or like we were saying before, look at this workout routine that I've been following for 30 days, and here's my submission for this whatever challenge.
Yeah.
Um, or even me, like I started to do some more art. And that's the stuff I would post because that's what made me feel the most productive and made me feel like, oh, look at what I'm doing with my quarantine time.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I
Do you feel
think,
like you're kind of like contributing to the problem?
yes, 100%. And I think like by being someone that works in social media, it doesn't help either because, you know, a lot of times I would just wish that I could just cold turkey quit all of it and just like delete all the apps and not pay attention to what's going on. But like part of my job is to understand what's happening on social media.
Yeah.
So it's hard to escape it. It's difficult in a lot of ways.
But I mean, even like just posting and not saying that you're not living your truth because you feel like you do love art and you do love photography and like
Yeah.
you are doing what you're doing and posting those things isn't a lie. But like just kind of the harder stuff that you're experiencing or some of this, I guess, more honest, less aesthetically pleasing things.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's like a vulnerability, right? Like, you know, being more open on social media means that you're in the public sphere being a
Yeah.
vulnerable person. And to a lot of people, I think that opens them up to too much criticism and people knowing about, you know, what their struggles are. And some people have made a brand off of their struggles. Like,
Yeah.
I think we've all seen the accounts about people talking about mental health, specifically their own mental health, or you know, on TikTok, it's people embracing their different troubles in life. Like I saw this whole profile of this girl with Tourette's, and it's just her cooking.
Me too. I love her.
Yes, I love her too.
She's so like, oh,
I
so
know
precious.
she's
Like just her
amazing.
style too. We're talking about
Yeah,
the same one, I believe.
yeah, we are.
Yeah.
But
But do you think that
yeah,
makes it less authentic if they make a brand out of it?
see, that's the thing too. It's like it's not glamorizing their illness
Yeah, they're
or their disability.
normalizing it in a way.
They are normalizing it in a way, but I've seen those comments of like, "Oh, you're profiting off your disability," or it's like, "Why shouldn't you be able to profit off your disability?" I don't know.
Yeah. And those people can just fuck off.
Exactly.
Like,
I think to me,
period.
like, yeah, I admire that a lot, and I love seeing that content because it's not something that I deal with, right? And it's just normalizing that disability, and I love when people can feel like they are able to be themselves.
Hmm.
But I think almost in some ways, like my struggles feel so vanilla.
No, Karen. I
Does
mean,
it
that's how you feel
absolutely?
though. And I'm glad you're saying that because that's how you feel. So why do you feel like they're vanilla?
Because it's like,
Like vanilla? Like you
no,
feel like they're
like,
like not that important or
yeah, they're like normal. They're like everyone deals with this.
so like what like for example, what?
Like, for example, like body image stuff or like relationship with food or like everyone has some stuff that they deal with. And it doesn't seem like a big enough thing.
Yeah, but do you feel like everyone's talking about that on their social media, on their Instagram?
No, not at all.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the difference.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I hope that like through quarantine, we feel the impact. I mean, we all feel the impact of social media. This is a
Mhm.
topic that you and I have had, but I mean, we've chatted and we are talking about it right now.
Yeah.
But I've also talked with all my friends about this during quarantine about just how much of this thing is becoming more and more a part of our reality. Like for real, this thing isn't real, you
Mm-hmm.
know? This thing, whatever is happening here, it's not real. But like our lives as years go on and as the COVID situation, working from home and being self isolated and being inside, stuck inside happens, the more we become infused with this reality. And this becomes a bigger part of our how we make sense of the world. So it's like, if that's the case, can we not try to make it as authentic as possible and not in authentic as brands call authentic? Not in a brief where undertone it says authentic,
Yeah.
personable, friendly. Like, shut up. I already know, like, everyone wants to be authentic. You don't become authentic by saying you're going to be authentic.
Oh, ridiculous. Yes,
You
I know
know,
exactly what
just
you
being as just saying how you feel, being and not saying, again, I'm not neglecting or negating the things that you're putting out there, not just you specifically. This is just
mean.
across the board with everybody or anybody. I'm not saying what you're putting out there isn't true or isn't an honest version of you. But I think there are more stories that aren't being told or parts of ourselves that we are still not willing to share on this version of reality. And I just think that what would happen if more people did? What would happen if people that you're following who used to just kind of post these like very beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, a very sort of a branded, curated version of that person. And
Mhm.
then, they started posting or at least telling more of the vulnerable sides of them. Especially during this time, I think it would help other people to be like, because for me, sometimes I think that my friends are doing fine and I'm the only one that's like having a really hard time. And I know that's not true.
Not true.
I know that's not true. But at the same time, again, it's like this idea of having this version of reality that our brains end up depending so much of our understanding of the world on. That
Mhm.
if I don't see that on here enough, it's hard to rely just on almost like instinct or just on trust to know that, yeah, I know I'm
Mhm.
not the only person. But if I see more of that on this, on these apps, then I would feel more like, yeah, that's so right. Like, I'm not the only person going through this when I feel like I'm the only person going through something like that. But I don't know.
True.
That was a long ramble of me just talking nothing.
No, but I understand what you mean, right? Like I think that you're right. Most people they only share the best portions. And I do that because why would you want to share something that's a struggle? Um and I think in some ways because I know who's following me, that sort of it holds me back from being more of my authentic self and sharing some of the things that are harder to talk about
Yeah.
because I want people to see the best version of me.
Yeah. And that's
You
totally
know?
fair. And I also understand that, like, my therapist reminded me this the other day. Not everybody is ready to go there yet.
Yeah.
Not everyone is ready to share, and not everybody wants to share, period. Sometimes, I asked a few friends of mine who wanted to, be a part of this podcast for me to interview them. And a lot of my friends responded by saying, I think this is a great idea and I love it, but I just don't feel comfortable sharing my story or my insecurities or some of my struggles with the internet. And I totally respect that. And that's their space and that's their safe space. And I don't want to impede on that. And that's the same thing. If you feel like by sharing something like that, hopefully that does something good for you, cathartic for you. And that doesn't do something where that actually affects you negatively in your mental health. And then you start to go down a darker spiral because of the fact that you've put yourself out there.
Mhm.
So I do hear it and I do understand that. Let's make the internet more like TikTok.
Oh, TikTok. I know this is like going all the way back to talking about what social media platforms I love and hate, but
You
man,
love TikTok? Do you hate it?
I feel conflicted about TikTok. I think there's a ton of great content on TikTok. There's a lot of creators that I think are coming into their own because they have this platform that's like super digestible for like regular viewers, right? There's templates of things that work, things that don't, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's such an ADD, and I shouldn't say this because that's uh like diagnosed like syndrome, I guess, that
Hmm.
people actually deal with, but it makes the sort of like attention deficit portion of my brain so much worse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To me, like that was what I hated about like Instagram, for example. But that's TikTok is that on like a whole nother level
Oh
for me.
yeah, it's on steroids. That's like basically what you're talking about in terms of being surrounded by screens right now during this whole pandemic.
Yeah. And I think like social media being such a big part of everyone's life because you want to still be connected with your friends, like you do Zoom calls and that's more screen time and
Right.
that's the only way you can connect with the people that you really care about that you can't necessarily see in person. The fact that work is literally in the same room as I sleep in, I can see my screens like all
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Um, it's hard because I think like I I work a job that I stare at a screen all day. I a lot of the things that I like to do, like watching movies and watching YouTube and playing video games, that's all screens too. But before I used to have like, you know, time when I was walking to work, no screen. Like I'm not watching a screen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was times when we'd go out for dinner and like it's not like we're looking at a screen, we're having like face-to-face conversation.
Yeah.
I think the effect physically on the eyes is actually draining.
Oh, it's horrible. My eyes
It's
have gotten
so
worse,
bad.
specifically during quarantine. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the effect on the brain is just I've noticed it. Like the brain fog is there, and I think it has some things partially to do with the fact that I've been way less active and the stimulation, everything we've talked about. But I think screens play a part in that as well.
I used to play games. I used to play actually Candy Crush. I made fun of my mom for this, but I used to play Candy Crush before bed. There was a time where I used to watch TikToks before bed. That was more recent. And I was one of those people that was on it for until 5 a.m. Like for real until 5 a.m. until 4 a.m. And I had work the next day and I hated myself even more because of that.
Yeah.
I would be on it watching a YouTube video. I would be on it watching ASMR videos because sometimes I couldn't go to bed, so I'd watch ASMR videos to help me go to sleep. Now I hate. I'm sorry, I'm this person because I hate how when I was not in that place, I hated what when people said this. But now I read before bed, and I know that sounds like so freaking pretentious and like so I don't know. There's like this weird elitism about people who read. Maybe that's just me.
It's like on online dating apps. Like when someone says they read, it's like ah.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, yeah, okay. So no. And usually when I'm reading, I get bored because it's not as exciting and it's not as entertaining for me anyway
Yeah.
as being on my phone and looking at what my friends are doing on Instagram or seeing what the news is about on Twitter or seeing funny videos on TikTok. Like it's just it's information. And it's like, you want to learn about this or not? Or you want to know the story or not? And if you don't, you're like, okay, I'm done. I close the book. I end up going to bed early. And that actually ends up being really good for me because I wake up, I have a better sleep, I have better rest because I genuinely have that winding down time. And I think that that's what's really important right now is like, make sure you have some sort of a wind down time. And
Mm.
being on your phone, no matter what you're on, even if you're on Headspace, I swear that's not wind down time. Like if you're on your phone doing something, you know, you got to like just put that shit aside, do something where your brain's going to get to a point where it's kind of bored. And then you're like, well, I have nothing else to do. So I might as well go to bed. Anyway, we're coming up on our last question because I realize we've gone a really long time talking.
Oh, well, I feel like that always happens. I feel
It
like
does.
I could talk to you forever.
Oh, me too. We can
Yeah.
keep talking after this. I just don't want to have to edit 3 hours of footage.
No, I know.
Last question. What do you like the most? Oh, sorry, no. What do you dislike the most about the pandemic? Let's start there. What's like, what do you hate the most about it? And then we're going to talk about what you love or what you like the most about it.
Interesting. I mean, this is the first thing that came to my mind. I think maybe if I thought about it more, maybe it wouldn't. You know what? I'm just going to go with it. Um, I think that, we talked about this, right? Like I am such a person that likes to go out and just do things. And whether that's actual chores or it's just I want to check this thing out or I want to go to this market that's on right now or I want to go to St. Lawrence Market just to look around and maybe buy like Ontario peaches in the summer or something like that. Like I think a lot of that joy in my life has disappeared. You know, like I used to love going grocery shopping on like a Sunday morning when it first opened and like getting a cart and like going through every single aisle and like picking up stuff and looking at it and just like enjoying my chores or enjoying my time like doing these kind of menial things. But now you have to think about everything, you know, and you have to think about the fact that you are putting yourself at risk by going to the store in the first place. Not
Mm-hmm.
saying that that's an unnecessary risk. You have to get groceries. You have to wear a mask and make sure you don't touch your mask. You have to make sure that you're sanitizing your hands for the sake of other people as well. These days, you have to double mask, so you can't forget your medical mask and the second mask.
Yeah.
You don't want to be lingering in a store for too long because there are other people waiting in line to get in because there's reduced capacity. If you want to shop for anything, you have to do curbside pickup and you can't like try on clothes. Like it sounds so menial and so little, but these are the things that I just like enjoy doing. Like
Mm-hmm.
as much as I hate the mall, I would sometimes just really want to go and like buy something.
Yeah.
And that sounds so superficial and like dumb, but it really did help my mental health, I think, to be able to go out into the world and just enjoy these really menial tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. And I thought, yeah, like I know what you mean by it sounds superficial,
Hmm.
but it's almost like when it's gone, you only realize that that stuff was so much more than just menial things. They were actually really meaningful things. And what do you like the most about the pandemic? And I'm saying this, being aware of the fact that the pandemic is a horrible thing.
Hmm.
COVID-19, we all want it to be over as soon as possible. We want to get vaccinated. And, we're looking forward to the day when we can once look at COVID as if it's something as common as cold or the flu and something as easily treatable or easily contained as the cold or the flu. But
I know.
keep that in mind.
Hmm.
What maybe things that you found most joyful during this time? Maybe that's an easier way of saying it.
I think I realized honestly that I don't need to drink.
Ah, interesting.
And it's not that I will refuse to drink, like we had a glass of wine today,
Mhm.
but I think that there was a lot of social pressure to like go out on a Friday night and pre-drink and then buy drinks at the bar and then spend a bunch of money and do all this
Drink
stuff.
at work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like I realized I'm a person, I don't really drink when I'm by myself.
Mhm.
I drink in social settings.
Mhm.
And I think that I felt like there was a pressure to drink in social settings because everyone else was doing it.
Mm.
But what I think like I liked about the pandemic so far in terms of a benefit to my life is that I drink a lot less.
Mhm.
I don't only spend less money, but I also drink less.
Mhm.
And I it's not like I don't enjoy a drink once in a while, but I don't feel this pressure to drink
So you
because of
almost
different
yeah,
situations.
you almost realized that there was a pressure when you were drinking before. Maybe not every time, but sometimes.
Yeah, like yeah, there was free beer at work on Thursdays. Why not have a drink? Everyone else is having a drink. Or like on Friday nights, if it's someone's birthday, then like there's pressure to be a certain amount of drunk because everyone is that level of drunk.
Mhm.
And in order to have a good time and in order to have fun, you got to drink. Or like people are pressuring you without meaning to do it into
Yeah.
drinking.
Yeah. That's totally fair. That's a really good point. And just like kind of take a step back and look at alcohol for what it really is and just be like, do I really need this? Or do I really want this? And like, I totally, that's a really good advice for
Mhm.
anyone out there who is, you know, maybe trying to maybe stop drinking.
Yeah.
Maybe do a month of no drinking. I just have this thing where I want to be this like European person,
Which involves drinking.
which involves drinking and smoking.
Yeah. Oh,
But anyway, well, thank you so much for being on
yeah.
here.
This was so cathartic. I know
Was
you
it?
at like a few moments in this
Oh, thank
chat, but it
you.
was, I think, we talked about COVID things, we talked about non-COVID things. We talked about things that we talked about before, but also like breached some new topics, which was nice. Um, yeah, it was great.
Yay. I mean, I'm
I would
happy
recommend
to.
everyone do this.
Oh, thanks. I would love to have you on here multiple times
Mm.
and as many times as you'd like. I'm sure we would never run out of things to talk about, but I want to say thank you for being here and for sharing your story. And is there anything you want to say to anyone out there?
Hmm. I don't know. I think like thinking about our chat, something that really stuck out to me was the authenticity on social media.
Mm.
That sounds like a bunch of like buzzwords all put together, but
So
the
true.
way in which we talked about it, I think that's the thing that I think will stick out with me um, throughout this chat the most. Not to say that I'm going to, spill my tell all on my Instagram or Twitter, but I think it's something to keep in mind. And I think it's a good lens to have when looking at social media as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's like we should just take back the control of social media. It's really like without people, that thing doesn't exist, you know? And
Mhm.
it's like we should be able to make it how we want to, what we want to see on there and how we want other people to use it. And it's just, let's, start feeding stuff that we want to start seeing. But
Yes.
that is the gist of it. All right. Um, I think we're done.